fuck this. It was after my contractual hours. I fulfilled all of my duties. I left work, and I went to the bar. I sat on the porch waiting for the bar to open because I got there like 20 minutes early. I'm like, I'm not driving 45 minutes back to my house to wait for this bar to open. I'm just going to sit here for 20 minutes.
Thinking about your life's decisions.
Thinking about my life's decisions like Kermit with a cup of tea. Welcome to Nerds of the Old Republic, where we have some cocktails in front of us, and we are ready to talk about a movie that one of us who shall... Well, no, it's Mike. Mike hasn't seen the movie, and we weren't going to let him go through life without knowing what in the world the gloriousness of Ghostbusters is. So we got him to watch Ghostbusters, and Sean picked the beverage for today, so I'm going to let him describe it as I look at it.
Well, first I have to say a couple of things. Number one, if you heard some beeping in the background, that's just my insulin pump, sorry. And number two, I had to really refrain myself from slapping Mike full in the face when he told us he has never seen this movie.
Sean actually wound up.
I was ready.
Almost.
Yeah.
But, cooler heads prevailed. Mike decided to see the movie and has hopefully changed his life.
I don't know if I want to go as far as saying I decided to see the movie as much as I was
told.
I was strongly advised to see the movie.
Yeah, that's a better way.
Thought that would be wise.
In the best Soviet way.
Yeah,
so,
I actually cut out some letters from magazines and was like, if you want to be my friend, you must watch. I don't care if you like it or not.
I got those. I couldn't, because of the magazine, I couldn't tell the handwriting, so I had no idea. But
he just outed himself. So I found online in a very quick Google search, Ghostbusters cocktail. And the first thing that came up looked like a Ghostbuster cocktail. So I said, that looks good. Basically, it's melon liqueur. It's supposed to be peach schnapps, but we're going to try it with triple sec. And you're supposed to dribble, you mix that together, and then you dribble some Baileys or some equivalent into it to make like a ghostly shadow. But really, it just looks like somebody hocked a chocolatey loogie into our drink, or has like brown jizz.
Yeah.
Somebody finished early.
It is just... Oh,
the bell's back!
That was fast today.
Oh, that's what she said.
So I don't know if we should whip them around a little bit, maybe to mix in the ghost.
Whip them around a little bit.
It's sub 2 minutes, and we've done it.
Wow.
Well, I'm worried about spilling mine, so I'm going to drink a little bit first,
Yeah.
and then I'll start
All right.
up.
The high C or whatever that you just said, is that like... Are you talking about that can that you used to open, like with the can opener? And
Oh, they definitely sold it in
you...
that size, but you could get it in the little lunch size ones too.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna look up a picture of it.
Hey, you never had Ecto Cooler either?
No, we
what
did.
What the fuck? Jesus.
We did a little bit, and I don't know. That was it wasn't a big one in our house though. We always had a lot of other horrible shit like Kool-Aid, which is just cups upon cups of sugar in water.
Yeah, well, high C.
Yeah, that's the stuff. Yeah,
you can get it in the can.
Okay.
And they got it. There's the can picture. Actually,
Slimer.
If your family bought at Sam's Club and wanted the 9 pounds of it,
I think
it looks exactly the same in these pictures.
It really looks like Ecto Cooler.
I think the only time I had that was at like birthday parties, and I think that's why I'm familiar with the can.
That makes sense, because when you need to placate a dozen children clamoring for sugar water, that's what you do.
That'll work.
Or you just give them one of these drinks and they'll fall asleep pretty quick.
Yeah, quick night.
That'll take care of it.
Not that we condone drugging your children.
No. But
unless you're giving them Benadryl on an airplane. That's something else altogether.
As parents, we all understand what it is to have children.
That's right. We sympathize.
And fantasize.
Oh, this drink is great. Keep sipping it.
All right.
I can't swivel it. It's sat down at the bottom now, the little shot of Bailey's.
Yeah, mine almost looks like a little jellyfish hiding down there.
Yeah, that thing's alive.
It's like fuzzy and kind of moving around.
It looks like one of the creatures in the last book we reviewed.
I'm wondering if that's going to be, like, is that going to actually have substance? Is that going to be all chunky by the time I get to the bottom of this drink?
Did we do this wrong? Is this supposed to be like a car bomb where we just chug the hell out of it?
Well, that sickly sweet drink is done for me.
Before we get to the meat and potatoes of the show, do you want to re-up with something, or you want to set?
I heard tales of beer at the Adam household.
You like darker beer, right?
I do.
You prefer non-hoppy darker beer?
Non-hoppy dark beer.
All right.
Adam, I'll take one too. If you can spare one, that would be great.
What a square to spare.
I can't see myself drinking too many of these.
No, that was an experimental to say we had something theme related.
Yeah, no, it looks really cool. And one or two of these would also be fine. But I feel like you have too many of those, your stomach's going to start feeling like someone stabbed you.
Yeah, if you really enjoy sweet drinks, you'd probably enjoy it. I know a lot of people. A friend of mine, he won't drink anything that isn't like super sugary.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
Ooh,
my favorite community
brown
beer
ale.
works.
I have had this one before.
I love those people.
Yeah.
Shout out to Community Beer Works.
Nice.
If you somehow listen, awesome people. Good beer.
If you're ever looking for some, sponsorship opportunities, and get your name out there, because God knows our podcast, the reach of this podcast is global.
Yes.
It is literally global.
It is.
And also in the hundreds of listens.
Yes, I like that vague, that vague way you said that.
Over 450 downloads.
But less than 40,000.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range, though, we are reaching people as far away as Belgium and Bangladesh.
There's some friends in California. And Iowa. Yes. I believe the new Ghostbusters movie, I think, is set in Iowa. Look at that transition. I think it
think,
is.
yeah.
Afterlife, right?
Yeah, somewhere out there in the Midwest. And I believe it's Iowa. I could be wrong. It's not out yet, obviously, but...
Yeah. Which, that could be a watch we do. We could do a watch together and...
Absolutely.
Well, do we have to subject Mike to Ghostbusters 2 first?
Well, let's get the premise and lay down the tracks of Ghostbusters 1 and see how he feels first before we force him into a second movie
So
he didn't like.
Good call.
There's just so I know what I'm in for here. There's Ghostbusters 2.
Yes.
There wasn't there an all-female cast Ghostbusters?
We will never speak of that one.
We will not speak of that
Hey,
one.
I didn't not like it.
I fell asleep.
Tepid.
It was
That's
so
a
bad.
tepid.
It was a tepid endorsement.
It's terrible.
I get the sense that passes for a positive review as far as this movie goes, though.
I
have nothing
I give
against
it a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay. That still. The concept of an all-female Ghostbuster team sounds fantastic. And I'm all on board. The cast was awesome.
Yep.
The story, the way it all came together was all shit. Absolute 100% unadulterated, unfiltered shit. It sucked. It was a waste of talent. It was a waste of pulling Bill Murray back into the Ghostbusters franchise. What a fucking waste.
That could be a whole separate subcast. If I remember hearing right, Leslie Jones was supposed to be a writer and then wasn't.
I don't know
and
for
I
sure.
think she would have been great. Like, if those three women were also writers, that would have been great.
I think the largest problem was the director. I can't remember his name, but I remember reading about him being a big part of the problem.
Scorsese, wasn't it?
No, De Niro did not make an appearance.
Shot like a Kurosawa revenge film, right?
Now that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
right,
we're not going to speak of
back
that. It's not in the timeline that we're discussing.
And there is does that cover the existing canon? And now there's a new one coming out.
Well, wait a minute. There are the real Ghostbusters animated show, which was on in the 80s.
Yeah. Okay. Which I remember watching, actually,
Same
as a
here.
kid.
And it follows the adventures of the original Ghostbusters cast, although, oddly, Egon is a blonde. And I can understand because, what's his name? Guy who plays Egon, sadly not with us anymore.
Yeah. I just was reading so much about Ghostbusters and somehow I don't
Harold
remember
Ramis,
his name.
sorry.
Yeah,
Harold Ramis is not a blonde.
A
but
writer
anyway.
On the film.
Yeah, but they did that cartoon, and there was another cartoon called The Ghostbusters, which had absolutely nothing to do with the franchise, which is why that had to be called The Real Ghostbusters. But it's not really canon, so I guess we don't have to speak about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was a reboot, which actually had a really diverse cast. It had a girl, a female lead Ghostbuster. It had a gentleman in a wheelchair.
This is the cartoon?
Yeah, this is another cartoon.
Was it the one with the monkey?
This was, I think so.
That's not the reboot. That was the parallel one. That wasn't actually the Ghostbusters.
This was like early 2000s, so maybe it's a different one.
It must be, yeah.
There's a lot of franchise here, and in fact, just to kind of lay down some background. So 1984, it's 97% fresh from Rotten Tomato. People fucking love this film.
Oh yeah, they will fight over this movie.
Written by Dan Aykroyd
and Harold Ramis.
Well, Aykroyd had the original premise for the film. Was supposed to be set in the future where Ghostbusters were like firefighters, hence the use of the firehouse. And they were all over in parallel universes all over Earth fighting ghosts at the same time. When he originally pitched the film to Columbia, they're like, yeah, that's like $300 million in 1984 film. That's not happening. So he and Ramis got together and in 3 weeks pared down the script, and the only reason why it got shot from Columbia's standpoint is that they promised to do it in $30 million and in 12 months. They had a hard open of 12 months, and the special effects, everything from the rewrite of the script, 12 months finished.
Wow.
It opened as promised for $30 million, and it is Columbia's highest grossing film, period, when you account for inflation.
Yep.
And it was the #1 comedy film. This is from the lightning round. I'm stealing from a little bit later.
Okay. So I'm going to get this right. Go
You're
ahead.
going to get this right. Any guesses as to what movie dethroned 1984's Ghostbusters as the highest grossing comedic film?
Highest grossing comedic film.
It's got a child actor that doesn't look great now.
Child actor? Oh, Home Alone?
It was Home Alone.
Wow.
Home Alone dethroned it as the highest rating comedy. I'm not sure what it is now, but obviously.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is like top 5, if not top 3, movies of all time, bar none. It is solid from start to finish. Everything is perfectly written in this movie. All the dialogue is perfectly delivered. The acting is spot on. There are no weak points. There are no plot holes. There is nothing in this movie that is wasted. It's like Back to the Future and how tight the narrative is. It is fucking fantastic.
I'm waiting for Mike and his response because this was his first experience. So I want to give the man some floor space.
Well, a couple of things first. Sean, I want to compliment you on your Ghostbusters shirt, which I just noticed here within the last couple of minutes.
Thank you. I have to wear it once in a while.
That was a good choice for the evening. And second of all, I want to agree with you on Back to the Future being a perfect film. The first one.
Yes.
The second one I rewatched recently, and I hadn't seen it in a while, and I always remembered it fondly, and I was a little disappointed. It's not as good as I remembered, but it's still good.
The first movie is the only one that stands alone. Yeah. The rest of them, you have to take the whole thing as a trilogy.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're just fun. You know, they're just fun.
Especially when you get to the third one, you just have to take it as.
But and that's where I was going to complete my train of thought here with the third one by saying I had not seen that one in a while either, and I remembered it very like I didn't have a positive feeling about it overall, and I liked it better than I remembered. Okay. So I mean I don't know. It's interesting the second and third one, like the way I remember them versus the way I see them recently. But the first one. Perfect movie, beginning to end. But it's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Ghostbusters. It was fine. I mean,
Sean looks like he got kicked in the balls.
It was good. I mean, I was entertained for 90 minutes or so. Sean's taking a deep breath. I'm getting ready to hop out of my seat in a second here if I have to.
Adam had to put his baseball bats away.
I'm watching. Which hand do you, if you were swinging on a punching bag or something, what hand would you use?
I'm ambidextrous, Mike.
Okay, all right. So I got to watch both arms then.
And unfortunately, Mike always sits next to Sean.
Oh man,
so
I think we've had some
in the danger zone.
There are some role reversals here. Mike's always been on the out on this. I've always been the hater.
It's Mike's turn, yeah.
You've always been the guy who's kind of like, I don't really know as much as you guys know about this. Yep. Now Mike sits in that chair ×2, and he's going to get heaped on big time.
But I want to clarify that I'm not being a hater. I enjoyed the movie. I would not put it in my top 3 to 5 comedies of all time. Certainly would not put it in my top 3 to 5 movies, period, of all time.
I wouldn't be there for me either.
I liked it. I
too.
thought it was a good movie. I was entertained,
Okay.
For whatever it was, an hour and a half. It was an hour and a half well spent. I'll give it that. That's my review.
All right, you got lucky there.
I'm still getting ready to run if necessary.
So, I guess I'll be the median here and say, like, I loved it as a kid. I had all the toys. I had the backpack. I had the little trap you could slide out and stomp on, and the little puff of air would push open the doors.
Yeah.
Watched all the cartoons, as I said. Like, recently got to see a version of the Ecto 1 in person. Loved it.
Such a cool car.
It's such a cool car. And another interesting fact, they only had one for the production.
Yeah.
And it broke down as it was crossing the Brooklyn Bridge. And they're like, thank God we got all the shots done, because that shit's done.
Damn.
Wow.
Yep.
That was a Cadillac hearse.
It's a Cadillac
Or
hearse. There's a
ambulance,
50
something.
Cadillac hearse, and they're like, this is
Wow.
a fucking hoopty falling apart right now.
I love the lines when Ray's like, it just needs this, a little bit of this, and that, you know?
Yeah, that was good. And then Bill Murray interrupts him and says something else, and then Dan Aykroyd goes back into like listing all the things that it needs to get fixed up on. And no, it was a good movie. I was entertained by it. I think the difference, between, maybe your guys' opinion of it and mine is that like I just saw it too late. I didn't grow.
Yeah, it could be.
I didn't grow up with it. I didn't see it in the era when it really shined. I didn't I've never. It's not a movie I've talked to other people about. You start saying lines to movies, and it helps you like kind of feed your appreciation. And to see it now in my late 30s for the first time in 2021, that's not gonna resonate the same way.
That is
And
a feat in itself, getting through 30 years plus of never seeing Ghostbusters.
as I consider myself like a real like film buff, and it's it's shocking sometimes the movies that I have not seen.
Well, it's the same thing with books.
Yeah.
Like,
You can't see them all.
you can't see them all. And I
Right.
joke,
Can't read them all. That's a great point. I've never read. I teach literature. I've never read Catcher in the Rye. Never read it.
oh,
Not a single page of
that
it.
is okay. I have never read Moby Dick. And my son has recently picked up the graphic novel and is reading it. And it's my younger son
Yeah.
who is reading it. And he loves going, this is probably the appeal, Daddy, I'm on page 10 of Moby Dick and you haven't ever read it.
Call me Ishmael.
Yeah,
That's
that's all
right.
I know about it. That's literally all I know.
There's
So it just
there's a
happens that
great
way.
there's a great story somewhere in Moby Dick. As someone who has read the book twice, there's a great story in there.
Yeah.
It's just that you also have to suffer through chapters upon chapters of like how life is on a whaling ship and like different scientific classifications of whales. Stuff that like honestly an editor just needed to come in and chop out.
A
There's
20th century editor would
That's
be like,
right.
nah, fuck
Well,
you. This
but
book is 100
that's
pages
Victorian
long.
literature.
Exactly.
That's what they did. They I think they got paid by the word. So I was telling my students, I hate Victorian literature. It's too flowery. His short stuff is actually way better, like Billy Budd and the one about the banker or whatever. There's a couple of short stories that Melville did that were excellent.
He did some nonfiction too, which I
Yeah.
haven't read, but I understand is more like tighter and more focused.
more like Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
A tighter story.
A very
Tighter
tight
stream.
narrative. That's
Tighten
right.
up the stream.
No exhibition is wasted. It's all.
Notice how
so-
Ghostbusters did not go on for like 45 minutes at a time about like how the machines work. And,
Funny you mentioned that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry if I'm cutting ahead of you, but I just talked about that today with my wife because we just watched it as like a little refresher, even though I can quote the whole damn thing beginning to end.
Yep.
Like the part when they're in the elevator, at their first bust, and they're like, it just reminds me we've never really had a full test of this equipment.
Yeah.
He goes, switch me on, and it's just like, I'm like right there.
yeah.
They didn't need to explain it. They didn't need to tell. All you do is, we just have unlicensed positronic reactors on our back or nuclear reactors. Like, exactly what you need to know about how this whole thing
Yeah.
works from some throwaway dialogue that it almost feels ad-libbed in the
Right.
elevator on the way up.
Almost every line from Bill Murray was ad-libbed.
He
He literally was like, I have a script.
I suspected
sure,
that.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah.
But that's his best work.
Yeah.
If you think about it, these guys, when you go back to Stripes, Bill Murray and Harold Ramis had their time together with that. The time with Dan Aykroyd on the original cast of Saturday Night Live, those guys had something. And whether it was like a bond through cocaine or whatever.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Oh, but seriously, there was like that. They trusted Bill to do the job. That's why they hired him as the lead, because they knew this guy's got the charm. He's got the delivery, the sort of like dry, whatever. It's Bill Murray. There's no other way of describing his legendary ability to just deliver a line.
Right.
Even when they didn't write the line, you're like, well, he's got an idea of what he needs to do. It's fine.
Bill Murray is a comedic god for this exact reason that you're describing. I have like watched him carefully and tried to understand like what he does to deliver lines the way that he does, because he could sit here right now if he were at this table with us and he could say something. I mean, he could read like the government warning on my beer can here and it would be fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
There's something about Bill Murray that he doesn't make facial expressions. No. He does not inflect his voice.
He's just Bill Murray.
Yet it's fucking hysterical. The scene that I think about this every time I see Bill Murray, and the scene in this movie that really sort of reinforced that is when he first goes to who's the actress? What
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, he goes to her apartment, and he's like behaving in this completely creepy,
puffing
inappropriate
that wand,
way.
which is like, what the
Right.
fuck is that wand?
And like she's clearly rejecting his
Yeah.
advances, and like he's just like doubling down. He's behaving in the most like unsettlingly creepy manner, and it's fucking charming and it's fucking hilarious.
And then she threw me out. She didn't want to see me
Right.
again.
Yeah.
You were so odd.
That's great.
I got it.
That's classic Bill Murray.
Yeah.
And he wasn't supposed to be Venkman. I
Right
actually, this is the first time I finished something ahead of time. I did research and I
Nice.
took copious notes.
Nice,
I've got
man.
lots to say about the dialogue because
Nope.
you were saying like every line isn't a throwaway and it's like perfect. I thought so until I turned on captions. And then I was like, the motherfucker, what? But we'll get to that. Jim Belushi was supposed to be Venkman.
Oh no shit.
And then
That's true.
R.I.P. Jim Belushi.
Right.
Yeah, you know that Slimer was actually their tribute to Jim Belushi?
Thanks. That was the lightning round question.
Oh!
Yes, it was.
Damn it.
I know.
You gotta go
That's
deeper
fine.
on those things, Adam.
I read a BuzzFeed list. That's research for me. Thanks.
All right,
That's right.
sorry.
We'll get to it. No, see, the thing I like about Murray is his delivery,
Right.
but his chemistry with the other two actors. Like Dan Aykroyd and Murray obviously knew each other through Saturday Night Live, and then Ramis and Murray through Stripes, right? So there's like that interaction, but like when you look at what they're actually saying at face value, like that's where it appears more like a comedy to me. Because like, yeah, the premise is kind of silly. And okay, it's ridiculous that they get kicked out of their university, and I love the fact that they're drinking on the steps of the university moments later. Like, I don't know if the cut from the director was like off or whatnot, but literally they get kicked out and they're drinking a bottle of like cognac VSP or something on the steps
there's
there.
the implication that time has passed.
Sure, that's not what it seemed like, but I love that. And like I was looking through some of the dialogue, like when they go to the library, that's like the iconic scene for me. I know that Slimer comes in later, and like my youngest son is like, when's Slimer coming? Once, because I watched it, took notes. No one wanted to watch it with me because I knew I was going to be stopping, taking notes, and stopping, taking notes. So even my wife didn't.
That's impressive, Adam, that you did all that, and
That's
I think
why he's our leader.
we both had
I have 25 pages of iPad notes.
He's the cat.
Damn.
25.
Holy
Jesus.
Well, I mean, my handwriting is like size 72.
Oh, okay.
So
I was gonna say though that we both had some ground to make up after the city that we became. And,
that's right.
But I did. I
that's
don't know that I made up that ground, but you
No,
obviously
it's okay.
clearly.
This was
did.
a new life experience for you, so that's where we're kind of relying
That's
on.
right. That's right. I had enough to digest just watching the thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. There's your personal reactions. There's keeping up with the plot and
All right.
stuff.
It's-
Okay,
it's
so I
funny.
did my part.
I couldn't do that because I watched it with my entire family, who
Yeah.
are all huge fans.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, the library scene. My 9-year-old son, and I are quoting this thing left and right.
That's impressive.
And he's like, oh, symmetrical book stacking. It's like the Tunguska, whatever.
I have that.
And
no,
then I go,
yeah.
you're right. No human being would ever stack books this way.
So the first line that caught me off guard when I had the captions turned on was Aykroyd saying they're walking in to the library, the New York Library, talking about phenomena, and he's like, I was present in an undersea unexplained mass sponge migration.
Yes.
And then Murray, I don't know if it was ad-libbed or not, is like, they moved 1 foot.
Yeah, the
then they
sponges
just keep
migrated
walking
1
in.
foot.
Yep.
Yep.
That's good.
Well,
Gold.
I say that, but like the final product, like there were some obviously parts where they had to dub something over. I mean, you
Yeah.
could see it if you watch for it. It's
Yeah.
there. But the sum of its parts is so much greater than the whole. It's just, and I could wax poetic about it. You said like the whole like they get kicked out of university and that. Well, who else is going to found a ghostbusting team but a bunch of paranormal investigators who worked at a university, right? They set this up where Egon's brilliant. He knows what he's talking about. Ray's
Also,
deeply into this stuff.
I fucking love Egon's calculators. Did you notice throughout the movie they get progressively smaller?
Yes.
So they start off like a normal Casio,
Yep.
and then by the time they come back from the bank, he's working on like a little like 1x1 calculator, punching in mortgage rates.
Really?
As they walk out. Yeah.
Ray, I hope you know that the interest rate for the first 5 years is $95,000.
You didn't even haggle.
Yeah.
Everyone's got
Everyone's
three
got
mortgages.
3 mortgages these days. It's the
Yeah.
best money you ever spent.
All right. So while I have issues with the dialogue, the fact that we can like come back to this, but maybe it's like Mike was saying, like we saw it at a time where we were more
Right.
impressionable. I don't really geek out about films that I see as an adult. Like
True.
I liked Avatar, but I don't quote Avatar all the fucking time.
There are some movies, but you're right. I think you have to catch it at a certain age when you're just such a sponge and you're absorbing everything. And
Yeah.
Ghostbusters hit me. I was I'll age myself here, but I was 3 when it came out theatrically, and I remember seeing it almost immediately when it was released at home, like on film, where my mom would let me watch it. Yeah. Which now I'm looking back and going, "Wow, Mom!" But you know, my kids, we told them when not to look, kind of a thing, so they wouldn't get scared. Even though you look at it now,
you mean the blowjob scene? Yeah,
well,
I fast forward through that.
See, when I was a kid, I never understood what was going on, so I just let my kids watch it. They don't know what's going on.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I invited my 5-year-old and my 7-year-old to join me for the film, and I got really antsy for that scene, and then it occurred to me, I looked down at them and they're just watching. They have no fucking idea.
I had no clue.
I'm like, I'm good.
Oh, he's being haunted. Okay, and that's all. I never thought. Oh, he's getting a phantom blowjob here in his dreams. It's not even real. It's a dream. He's got a Napoleon jacket.
They just thought it was funny that he crossed his eyes. Like they just thought that was a funny face, Daddy.
Yes,
and I'm
exactly.
Like, that sure was.
So I know that they're not thinking of it that way. But where's I going with originally? So the fact that they're paranormal investigators, they get kicked out of the universe. The premise holds up. Egon is brilliant. We know that. We know that Ray's really into the extra paranormal stuff, and Venkman is just the salesman, the con guy. And I like that scene where he's testing the girl and the boy for ESP, and he's shocking them. Yeah. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about him. Right. And I love how the guy, he's getting it. Like, he's within a card or so. Or he's right waves.
No,
and the girl he's trying to bang, you are truly a phenomenon.
Yeah. I really enjoy thinking about character introductions in movies. I love that. I've taught that before, where we've watched different scenes and we've been like, all right, let's hit pause. What does this tell you about the character? One of my favorite character introductions of all time on this note is Jack Sparrow in the original Pirates of the Caribbean, where he's like heroically perched at the top of his ship, and as the camera zooms out, it's a tiny ship that's sinking, and yet he still gets there just in time and swaggers right off. And you're right, this introduction of Bill Murray's character was absolutely perfect. Right down to the way he's like, actually, like, he's like, are you cheating? Can you somehow see these cards? Like, he's like so transparent, but it's working somehow on this person, and it's a great character introduction. All of their introductions are really good.
Spot on.
Yeah, I mean,
collect mold, spores, and fungus.
Yeah, like, under the table.
Yeah, that Janine scene where she's there, like being introduced as being on screen. Like, my first thought was, why the fuck would you take this job?
Right. Yes.
It seems like a bunch of dudes who do a lot of cocaine, just bought a firehouse, and are paying you?
Yeah. She's funny, too. Like,
quit worse jobs than this.
And she's like, people think I'm too intellectual, but I just think, why wouldn't you want to read? She's got that, like, Marissa Tomei, Brooklyn.
You must read a lot. Print is dead.
I know.
I
thought about, like, 1984, Print is dead?
Yeah.
What a man ahead of his time.
Egon is definitely ahead of his time.
The death of the novel's been predicted for a long time. Here we are in 2021.
Egon was always my favorite character because he was the quietest, and he had just the best, like, imagine this Twinkie represents all the psychokinetic energy in New York State in a normal state. Yeah. Imagine a Twinkie that's 35 feet long, weighing approximately 800 pounds. It's like,
because he did that math in his head.
Yeah, that's a big Twinkie.
Yep.
Well,
tell him about the Twinkie.
I mean, the classic comedic duo is the straight man and the clown, and he's clearly the straight man in this movie. Like, he never says anything that's overtly funny. It's only, like, funny based on the context, or, like, when you think about it afterwards.
Don't cross the streams. Like, they set that part up.
That was ad-libbed.
Yeah.
But the best part of it is it's so integral to the story at the end. He's like, I just remembered something. Don't cross the streams. It would be bad. I'm kind of fuzzy on the whole good bad thing. Would you ever?
Yeah.
Imagine every proton in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Yeah, he's like, good safety tip.
Don't cross the streams.
Apparently, that was totally ad-libbed because they needed a way to take out Gozer. And so they must have shot that scene first. Okay. Because then they planted that scene you were just quoting from as foreshadowing later.
Brilliant.
So brilliant. I am full of facts today because
so good.
So I realize what my students feel when I ask them to watch something and analyze it, because I loved Ghostbusters. I still do, but watching it as like an analysis experiment made me like it less. Because because when you look too closely at anything, the center cannot hold. Everything falls apart and all that crap that deconstructionists from the 2000s say. So like, it's not as enjoyable when you look too closely.
So it's my mission now to bring you back into the fold of pure unadulterated love.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, one of the things I loved about it is it took 50,000 amps to light the scene against Gozer on the stage that Columbia had to shut down other productions because they needed electricity for that stage.
That's pretty awesome.
That was pretty cool.
Wow. I will say one thing in analyzing it more closely this time, I noticed things like gags that I never really paid attention to, like when they're coming up with the bill for taking out Slimer. Yeah. And Bill Murray's just completely making it up as he goes, let's see, it's going to be about fourth. He's like, and you guys hold the numbers up, 4,000 for the entrapment. And we're running a special on proton charging and storage, and that'll be about 1,000. Yep. Just little gestures and things going on in like the surrounding aspect of it. It's just you don't pick up on these things until you really look at it. And it's just, I don't know. I think it holds up. I think it's great. And
some of the funniest parts for me are the parts that I don't think are necessarily the classic bits to people, who love them, or love the movie. Like I think I texted you guys this yesterday. Is a classic Bill Murray line. If anybody else said it, it's not even funny. But Bill Murray goes, when she's telling him about the fridge, and he's like, he looks at her with all sincerity and says, "That's not normal activity for a major appliance." And the way Bill Murray says that, I was dying. And that's a throwaway line. But
there's so many of them. I walk by a piano every time I go.
They hate this.
Yes.
Yep.
Or he opens the fridge. He goes, "Oh my God, look at the junk food.
I know.
Can you eat this?"
Apparently, Sigourney Weaver had a fire in her apartment one time. Oh. And the firefighters came in and checked her fridge and were like, "You better call Ghostbusters." And shut the fridge and walked out on her. And I'm like, "Oh, poor Sigourney."
Yeah.
She's interesting in that movie, too, because she comes off... She's perfect for the role. But she comes off as this almost like, what the fuck am I in?
She had just done Alien, and wanted to prove that she could do comedy.
Yep.
And so, lightning round question later, she wanted the role because of that. She wanted to show that comedic side to her.
She nails it. I mean, it would not be the same without Sigourney Weaver at all. Or Annie Potts, or any of them. Even Ernie Hudson as Winston, who's basically like, I don't want to say he's a diversity hire, but he kind of comes off in that regard. But I love how casually they handle that, too. Yeah. He comes in and it's like, "Lady, there's a steady paycheck in it. I'll believe anything you say." And Ray's like, "You're hired." Boom! That's awesome. And he's like, "Guys, I've only worked with these guys for a couple of weeks, but I have seen shit that'll turn you white." Like, his lines are fantastic. And he gets the last word in the movie, too.
The character that disappointed me in this film, just because I felt it was a waste of his talents, was Rick Moranis. Because Rick Moranis was fucking great. Yeah. And in this film, like, he's just so dweebish.
But
like,
that's
over
him.
The top. Yeah, but, I mean, even for Rick Moranis, it was too much. You know what I mean? Like, it just...
I don't know.
It just seems so Poindexter-ish to the point of absurdity.
It felt like the 1980s Poindexter character that, like, Breakfast Club had and 16 Candles. Like, all those movies had it. Though, I wanted to get this in earlier. I was -1 when this film came out. Just going to put that out there. Sean.
Thanks, young one.
So that was... The movie was 1985?
84.
84. So you were born in 85. All right. So I was 2.
Yeah.
Anywho.
I just like to get that at
Sean
because he was so full of himself there.
Clearly, my opinion means more because I'm wiser than him.
Yes.
Sure, there you go.
I disagree.
That's what we like to tell Grandpa.
Rick Moranis, he played the role.
Tell us a story about.
There was an onion tied to my belt, which was the style at the time.
The first time Sean saw Ghostbusters was right after his honeymoon.
There were Niagara Falls. It was lovely.
Rick Moranis, he was that was him though, and you got to remember it's a product of the '80s, so there were those stereotypes. But I think, again, they handle everything so casually. To me, it's not over the top. Yeah, he's a major dweeb, and the way Sigourney Weaver plays it off is like, "Oh, this guy just won't leave me alone. He keeps opening his door when I walk by, but he's harmless."
The concert, was she a violinist, a cellist?
Cellist.
The concert cellist didn't like the dweeb. Let's just put that out there. Yeah, that's a sign of how dweeby he was. But was this pre or post Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Way pre.
It was that was early '90s, wasn't it? And it was also pre Spaceballs, if I'm not mistaken.
Spaceballs was late.
It was like '87ish. Yeah.
This is around not Rocky Horror.
And what's the other one?
Little Shop of
with
Horrors.
The plants.
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, that
was around.
Okay.
He's great. I know he disappeared for a while.
Lost Treasure. Where is he?
He's been taking care of his family.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of sort of easing his way back in, but he's always been that sort of like schlub.
Right.
Yeah. And that's been his thing. He's like the little schlub, and John Candy was always like the big fat schlub.
And I also considered for a role.
He was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have a whole list of people who were like considered and or written into the script and then just didn't happen.
They're all part of what's that Canadian comedy troupe that feeds into Saturday Night Live? Like
I think it was Canadian Bacon, but that's not the comedy troupe.
But they all came from the Toronto area. It was like the Second City kids, Second Citizens, whatever.
Sure.
And it was this like Aykroyd. I don't know Bill Murray.
Dan Aykroyd is an American through and through.
No, he isn't.
I'm kidding. He's an American treasure, though, even though he's from Canada.
Bunch of those guys came out of Canada.
Yeah.
Mike Myers is one of them, and they all kind of went from, I believe, Toronto to New York, and they became part of the SNL thing and worked their way into the greater American zeitgeist.
I don't mean this as a major criticism, mind you. I just if there was a character or an actor whose talents I thought were not maximized in this movie, I think that's who I would pick. Rick Moranis is, he's an incredibly talented actor. I say that almost solely based on Dark Helmet alone and that performance, but I mean,
this was early in his career.
It was prior to Dark Helmet.
And this was not a well thought out, well considered, strong conviction of mine, nor a huge criticism of the movie. But I was disappointed with his part because it seemed very one note, very one dimensional.
Clearly, you've never seen his Ode to Canada that he starred in, I believe, with who was it? Was it Dana Carvey or John Candy or somebody? And they, it was like you ever see the Labatt beer commercials when it's like, put it in low, eh?
Yeah.
That's Rick Moranis in a movie.
Was it?
Strange Brew.
Okay.
That was it. You should watch that, and it'll really change your opinion of Rick Moranis. You'll be like, oh, okay.
Oh, he's not that good?
Then you'll go like, that Ghostbusters role is pretty good for him, actually.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Strange Brew.
I mean, they did try to maximize some of his talents because his entire party scene was ad-libbed.
That was cool when he was talking about how much he paid for the fucking caviar.
He's
or
got
whatever
some of the best
This
stuff.
is Norwegian herring or whatever.
They got a business in receivership, and they're drawing a salary off of a deferral, blah blah blah. And it's like, but they're okay.
Yeah, throws the underwear on the demon dog, shuts the door, or whatever it was.
Okay, who brought the dog?
That was my son's favorite line, by the way. My son is 5, and when he said that, and it was like that monster demon thing, my son just was dying. He thought that was the funniest thing, and he was saying that the rest of the evening. Who brought the dog?
Like the part when he's at that restaurant in Central Park, and he's trying to get
That is Tavern on the
Green.
Green. That is the restaurant in Central Park.
They all ignore him because it's New York. He's a bum. And then he's like getting taken up by the thing. He's like slowly shrinking. Then he's go right back to their conversation. It's brilliant.
And see, like when you back up and look at it from like 5,000 feet, like we're talking about it now, it's great. It's the movie I remember. As I analyzed it and I stopped too much and watched too much because my next note is so they have one customer, Sigourney Weaver, 3 pinball machines, and totally figured out a procedure for active paranormal call with proton packs that have never been tested in the span of how long?
Okay, Adam. Now here again.
See, and this is where English teachers kill things. I'm going to actively admit to that because I'm doing it to myself.
The beauty of the movie is that there is no sense of time. There really isn't. There's no
it could be months.
1 month later. We don't know.
Yeah.
All we know is that Ray mortgages his house 3 times to get the funding to make this work. They have stretched themselves to the max. They even have lines for that. This magnificent feast represents the last of the petty cash.
And
They're
that's
at
the scene
their
that made me
last
think
dollar.
because there are 3 pinball machines.
But how do you know they didn't have those before? They were all professors at NYU. They had money. It's not like they came into this with absolutely zero and built it up from the ground.
You're saving it for me.
All the technology was something that they had said. We've worked on this. We have an idea. The theory is sound. We got the readings at the library. I think this is going to work. It's all there.
Which, when you stare at just that, when you're like, I got the readings in the library. This is going to happen. It falls apart. But when you back up again another 10 feet, you're okay.
Macro view. You got to take a macro view because it's so tight. The story is so tight that there's no room for that kind of scalpel precision analysis like we're used to.
And it's a comedy, so you really shouldn't in the first place.
So I was telling Sean during the break here that I felt keenly watching this movie that it was a movie that definitely would benefit from multiple watches. I feel like my experience watching it the first time through was, you're obviously paying attention to the plot.
Yeah.
And you're paying attention to the obvious gags. But I feel like there's a lot of, throwaway lines that you would only pick up, if you had seen the movie multiple times. And those are sometimes the best comedies, honestly. For me, and I know Sean's not a fan of the film, but Napoleon Dynamite is one of those.
I fell asleep twice.
The first time I saw that movie, I could not understand why people liked it. I was confused. The second time, I was like, all right, there's some funny stuff here. Now I can quote that movie beginning to end. There is stuff in that movie, like deep lines that, only because I've watched that movie 50 times. And I felt like this was one of those. This is one of those movies. And all the great comedies are that way. The Naked Gun movies, the Monty Python movies, the Airplane, Mel Brooks, who we bring up often. All those movies are movies that the more you see them, the more there is to unlock. And I felt that way about this one.
It's almost like Kevin Costner's famed post-apocalyptic genre. Beginning with Waterworld. I mean...
You're like, oh shit, Tom Petty's in this one.
Yeah, I was letting you finish your sentence.
Right, there it is. But Tom Petty was in...
That was Postman.
The Postman, yes.
Whatever, yeah.
Yes, but I don't think that was the reference you're supposed to make anyway. No. It's not. So it's another crooner with an odd voice. We'll let him get that.
Yeah, I got to figure out a way to work that one in. I'm still working. Let me think about it.
You'll get there. It's funny, as you reference like Tom Petty in the text thread for the cast, repeatedly. And that was impressive. Mike went on a tear, including multiple songs.
Tom Petty is. I like music very much. As much as I love movies and literature, music's a huge part of my life. I like old music. I like new music. I like all genres. But Tom Petty he's always been my favorite. He's the one. Wildflowers came out when I was, I think, 12 years old maybe, and I still remember that album was like the first one that like really struck me as like, oh, I get this shit, and I was really into it.
He's infinitely listenable.
He really is. He was a master.
Yep. That one I agree with, and like I know his voice is not the standard like singer-songwriter voice or whatever, but more so than Dylan, I can get his lyrics, and maybe it's because I was introduced to him first and more than Dylan.
Yeah.
Kind of the same phenomenon we were talking with the Ghostbusters.
And they are completely different, Petty and Dylan. Petty's, songs are very singable. Dylan's are not. Petty's lyrics are very accessible. Dylan's are very surrealist. Petty's voice is unconventional, but it's like, it's in key, whereas Dylan's is not,
Yeah. Petty's voice is like a falsetto in key for a lot.
It's very heroic. That's the best word I can think of to describe Tom Petty's voice. When he sings, his songs, he sounds heroic.
So it sounds like Ghostbusters overall. Sean's a yes. I think Sean's a yes.
I don't think yes is affirmative enough.
Sean, you said, I'm curious if I can ask a question. You said it's your top 5 movies of all time.
Absolutely.
Does that mean it's your top comedy? Like number 1 comedy?
It's up there with like Young Frankenstein.
Great one.
There's a lot of really amazing comedies, and that's a hard genre.
Yeah.
But what's brilliant about Ghostbusters, which I think puts it up in that pantheon, is that it's a sci-fi horror comedy, which is not easy to pull off. Many have tried, many have failed, and Ghostbusters succeeds wildly.
Right.
Because of all of the diverse things, just again, lightning in a bottle. It came together at the right time with the right people. You can't make that movie again. They've tried, failed miserably. We already talked about that miserable attempt at a reboot. It's just... It's bad. They can't do it again.
Didn't think it was.
You know what's funny too? I was thinking about it. Like that raises it to me to another level. But another thing about it is I always watch that movie going like, man, I would love to live in New York. New York City is a character in this movie, and it's a great character. That movie in an hour and a half does so much more for the city than that book we read recently there.
Yep.
Trying to like a love letter to New York, which fails on all fronts.
Right.
This movie, barely even trying, makes me go like, man, fuck, New York looks awesome.
Right.
I was there a couple of years ago, and I went to see the firehouse where they filmed it. And they've got the Ghostbusters sign inside, the number 2 one.
Yeah.
Like, my kids and I are standing out front. We're taking pictures. They're loving it. I'm loving it. I'm like, holy shit, I'm in front of the freaking Ghostbusters firehouse.
Still an active firehouse, right?
It is. Yeah. It is, absolutely.
The interior was a firehouse in San Francisco, I think, on the West Coast, or maybe a soundstage. But I know the outside is straight New York City. It's funny you say, like, horror comedy is hard to pull off. I think prior to streaming, horror comedy was harder to pull off in this sort of, like, culturally important way. Because I just did a quick, like, horror comedy search as we're talking, and there are so many films that I've seen that I love as horror comedy, but I don't know that I could quote to another human being like Ghostbusters and somebody could pick up the next line like Dead and Breakfast. Fucking top 5 film for me. I don't care that nobody else knows it. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. Horror comedy. Also horror comedy musical. But anyways.
Okay.
And I'm just flicking through the list here, like Warm Bodies. Not a great book. Funny movie. Zombie film.
Is this on your list, the Evil Dead series?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is.
That's a
All
great
3
one.
of them.
Those are good,
That is a good
and
one.
that's another one that it succeeds in that rarefied error.
Yeah.
Not nearly as successfully as Ghostbusters does,
No.
but it has a cult following.
It's because
It's
more
got a musical.
It does.
Evil Dead does.
Evil Dead has a musical.
No shit.
Yeah.
Evil Dead is so it's so Ghostbusters has that more universal appeal. Evil Dead is far more like the number of people that are interested in a movie like that is far slimmer. But for those people, which I count myself among, I think those movies are. You know what? Actually, I don't think I've ever seen the first one or the second
That's
one.
much more like...
There's one of the...
Don't watch the second one.
Army of Darkness is the evil comedy.
Army of Darkness is the one that I've seen 1,000 times.
That's when they
and
went
that
the
shit is
comedic way.
brilliant.
They're
Yeah.
like...
They
we're
knew
gonna,
what they had.
Just
they're going
embrace the
straight comedy.
campy,
Yes.
exactly.
Bruce Campbell's brilliant.
What? There's the one though where he goes to like a cabin in the woods, which is
That's the first one.
That's the
and
first one.
second
So I've seen that one. I think I've seen that one twice.
He fights, cuts his hand off. He's fighting himself.
Yeah.
I own that. It's
Yeah, same
over
here.
our shoulder.
Oh, those movies
in
are
DVD.
great.
Yep.
What else is on the list?
Zombievers. I've seen it. It's not
Not
great.
Ghostbusters.
Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
Oh, that
It's not Ghostbusters.
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
It's not Ghostbusters.
No,
Now,
I know that's the thing.
Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies was interesting.
Yeah.
Was interesting as a book. I remember I didn't read the whole thing because you'd have to actually want to read Pride and
You
Prejudice.
should ask
beginning to end.
ask one of our coworkers what she might think of that.
But
It's
the
actually my wife's favorite book.
If
Not
you-
Zombies, but Pride and
The
Prejudice.
book is genius. I mean, the idea behind it was genius. It's literally the text of Pride and Prejudice
Yep.
with just key insertions that create this entire zombie subplot. And the one that I don't remember much of it because I read it years ago, but the one scene that just stood out to me and I was dying was there's that famous scene where who's the female character protagonist in that book?
Jane.
So Jane is walking from where she lives to where Mr. Darcy lives. And that's a famous scene in the book.
The main character in the Jane Austen novel is Jane.
Is it Jane? That doesn't sound right to me.
Maybe
Doesn't
I'm
sound
wrong.
right to me
I
either.
could be wrong.
But
sorry.
anyway, she's walking, and so in the middle of this famous scene, the author inserts this moment where these zombies crawl out of the bush and attack her. And fortunately, she's been trained by her father, as all her sisters have in the fighting the dark arts.
But it's very classist because they went to China, not Japan.
Something like that, yeah.
It's Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, that's
Sorry.
right. Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. And then so she decapitates these zombies, and then I'll always remember this line. She then let her war cry be heard for hundreds of yards in every direction.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to Jane Austen's writing, and she proceeds along and finishes her walk to Mr. Darcy's. And I just thought that shit was brilliant. The movie I never saw.
So it does insert that plot line of the bridge because I recently rewatched this actually with my wife. The bridge, inner London, outer London, and they have the separated lane in between with a bridge, and there's one bridge left that they have to blow up. And of course, Darcy and Elizabeth are, going to get Elizabeth's sister, because she's on I forget inner or outer, whatever, and they have to go get her, but they're gonna blow up the bridge because the zombies are coming,
Right.
sort of thing.
That shit was brilliant.
It honestly, I really do appreciate, but still not Ghostbusters. I get you. How about? All right, I'm gonna lay this one at the feet of Sean because really, he's the one we have to convince here.
The wiser elder statesman.
Zombieland, with Bill Murray, by the way.
Okay.
With Bill Murray.
Okay.
Zombieland, cult favorite.
All right. I'm gonna
Rule
put,
number 1, limber up.
I'm gonna put Zombieland in my top 20 movies of all time.
That's impressive.
It's fantastic.
It is fucking
It's
fantastic.
watchable, and I'm not a kind of person that loves to rewatch movies because I don't have time for that shit.
Yeah.
But I put that on I would watch it again and again
I own both.
because it's fucking awesome. Not just for Bill Murray and Woody Harrelson, who's incredible, but in a small way, it sort of does take what Ghostbusters kind of did, and it takes the zombie genre, and it just sort of nonchalants it. And I know that's not a verb, but that's the best thing that Ghostbusters does with the whole paranormal and the sci-fi and the horror. It just makes it so nonchalant, and it's all from their dry delivery. And Murray encapsulates all of that with like those, like you said in the line, like right, that's really odd for a major appliance, or just like when she's like possessed by Zool, and he's just sitting there and she's like, "I want you inside me," and he's just
that line.
Oh.
I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they just said that in a PG-13 film."
And then he goes,
PG.
he says
PG.
I looked it up.
Excuse me.
yes,
PG.
and then it's before PG-13,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Oh, I shouldn't." Oh, well, and he's like, "Oh, it sounds like you've already got too many people in there," and it's like She sleeps above her covers. 4 feet above her covers, she barks, she drools, she's a dog. His delivery, or like the cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Mass hysteria.
Or like, my favorite line in the whole movie when it's like, oh, if it wasn't ridiculous over here,
that was a good
is
one.
this all true? It's true. This man has no dick.
Yeah.
His delivery is
That's
what
good.
really elevates the movie to me, and it's like they do that with Woody Harrelson's character in Zombieland, and and to an extent, what's his name there, Michael Cera, I think it is, or is it the other guy
that's
at
Michael
the door?
Cera.
And they're just so matter of fact about the world that they live in, and I think that is brilliant. That's the secret recipe to make these things work.
Deadpan is the key to American humor.
Yeah, really. Well, that and British humor apparently.
Well, yeah. Wow. All right. So shall we get? So Sean's a yes. I'm a yes.
I'm a
Mike?
yes.
All
Oh,
right.
absolutely a yes.
All right,
I have said
Unanimous yes.
from the beginning that I enjoyed the movie. I wouldn't, I wouldn't say I appreciate it nearly as much as you gentlemen. I think that's only because I'm seeing it for the first time in 2021. I think that's the only difference. Honestly, if I had seen it many years ago and seen it many times since and talked about it with people and over again, I'm sure I would like it better.
If you owned all the merchandise and watched the shows and Saturday Night Morning,
Yes.
you had no friends and had nothing else to do.
If
like
that had
I
been
did.
my path, it wasn't.
I got one more case to make though before you move on to your next step.
Yeah, I got the lightning round.
Just exemplifies how next level all the thinking was on this film. The scene where she's in her kitchen unloading her groceries is something I never noticed until I was an adult. She pulls out a bag of Stay Puft marshmallows, which is not a real brand.
That's a plant, yeah.
And I never knew that.
Yeah.
And I looked closely, I'm like, holy shit, those are Stay Puft marshmallows. And it sets you up for the fact that they exist in this world later with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
One of the things I was thinking about as I was watching the movie, one of the things that makes a movie great as opposed to just good is, does it have iconic imagery in it? To the extent where maybe you haven't seen the movie, like myself, and you still know these things because they've become ingrained in the pop culture. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, their home base being in a fire hall, that like fucking police car thing that they drive around the whole time. These things are iconic. They elevate the movie from just like, it's one of those things where if you had read the script, like the lines would be funny, but when you like see the imagery, it like sells the movie on another level. And those things like Star Wars and lightsabers have become ingrained in our pop culture. Right. Never saw the movie, knew all those things.
So much so that Ecto-1 is making a comeback in Afterlife, and Lego has re-released their creator series, which is like the high-end like adult series of Ecto-1, and it's like $200.
It's so iconic. They use that as just a quick sizzle reel to sell the new movie coming out. It was just that car, decrepit, under a wrap in a barn, and you're like, fuck, I know immediately what's going on. This is Ghostbusters, and you're like, you're along for the ride instantaneously.
I would love to see, not maybe a full cast, but what you think about 2. Because there is a Ghostbusters 2, and I think I remember more of that, actually, than Ghostbusters 1.
Interesting.
Which, I don't know why. Maybe it just could have been like my family had access to HBO at that time, and so it got played more at my house, because I never saw these in the theaters. I saw these on TV and stole them via VCR, as I did all the Star Wars films for that brief period of time when we had premium cable. So,
if my memory is correct on that one, it was like the proverbial, they dumped a boatload of cash on Ramis and Aykroyd's desk saying, please make another one because it did so well. Murray was extremely reluctant, and he's been extremely reluctant because he realizes that they were never going to do it again.
Yeah,
like
that was magic.
Right, exactly. It just came together perfectly, and he's the savvy one who was like, oh, I don't want to torpedo my career and ruin what we did. They came back with it. It was okay. It's not, when you hold up to the original, it is absolutely not nearly as good.
Yeah, it's not the same.
I want to make one more point here before we get to the lightning round, which I feel may be controversial, and therefore I'm going to get ready to leap from my seat quickly if necessary. Yeah. But when I think of this era of comedy, and I think specifically of like the SNL comedies that came out, I would put this behind Blues Brothers. I would put this behind Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. What are your thoughts on that? Am I completely off base here?
Well,
or
you just named two fantastic comedies.
Great,
absolutely.
great comedies.
And Blues Brothers is one of my all-time favorite movies as well.
Yeah.
But I still put Ghostbusters ahead of them.
So I'm not in imminent physical danger here.
No.
Is what you're saying? Okay,
No,
good. All right.
you didn't say something like
You're in a buffer
Porky's.
zone here.
You know,
Porky's
it's like,
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
well, that's got the Phoebe Cates scene.
Well, yeah, but that's literally all it's got.
But no, it's those are great movies in their own right, and they exist, especially Blues Brothers. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a Steve Martin vehicle, and it's fantastic for that.
It is a great movie.
If you're talking SNL alum character kind of thing, Blues Brothers is fantastic. Caddyshack, I think, is overrated.
I haven't seen Caddyshack in many years.
Same here.
It's overrated. But I still think Ghostbusters, if you watch them all back to back, you'd go, that's the tighter story. That's the better narrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to being a procrastinator and only having a short amount of time
Yeah.
to get shit done. Because really, 12 months to make a movie is tight as hell.
Fuck.
When you
To
have
get it on
the
the screen,
script,
yeah.
there are stories where like they did the test screening,
Yeah.
in New York, and like you could still see wires
Mm-hmm.
in like some of the action shots where they're dangling stuff
Mm-hmm.
because it was that tight, and the audience still loved it. Like they like cringed at one moment, specifically like the librarian when she gets all nasty.
But those effects still hold up, which
They
is
do,
incredible.
because one of my notes was, how did they make the books float so seamlessly, and how did they do the library card catalog? And I have librarian friends, and I'm like, oh my god, they would cringe seeing the card catalog
yeah.
explode like that. Turns out it's just a copper pipe with air being pushed through it. Yeah.
No, but it was brilliant. Like, it's just the way that they put all the effects together and everything on a budget, everything on a deadline. It's like, why don't I just give my students 2 days to write a 5-page paper?
Yeah.
Because I'll get better
You'll get
work
that
than if
shit
I gave them
done.
3
Right.
weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
They'll do it in 2 days, no matter how many days you give them.
Exactly.
Sean and I were talking during the break about these kind of films and how sometimes the best films come out this way. We mentioned Rocky 1.
I didn't realize it was so quick.
Yeah, I mean it was. I think it was done in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, they took a real risk because
very
Stallone was
small
unknown
budget.
at that time.
And
pretty much.
Sean mentioned the most obvious one. I think is A New Hope. Which was not expected to be a blockbuster. And that ended up blowing the world up.
Lucas basically cashed in any Hollywood credit he had to make that movie
Yeah.
with his connections to Spielberg.
Burned
And,
all of his
Right.
capital.
yeah.
Wow.
But it worked.
Well, in the spirit of fast and furious things, let's go lightning round. We already answered one by saying, Jim Belushi was supposed to play Venkman, and they paid respects to Jim Belushi by making an effigy of him in Slimer,
Well,
which is, okay,
It
the
was
character,
loving, though.
the character he played in National Lampoon's Animal House,
Right.
gorging himself,
Yeah.
that's the
Yes.
donut and stuff.
But I gotta say, if you imagine Belushi in that role, this movie is not nearly as
It's not gonna
successful.
work.
I've never
gonna work.
I've never seen Animal House.
Patreon.
It's okay.
Right there.
It's
All right.
okay.
Who you each get a go at this? Who auditioned by wordlessly transforming into the Gozer demon dog?
Sigourney Weaver.
Mike?
Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, you're both right. Pick a better 1980s ghost movie.
Like a better one?
Yeah.
You can't.
Doesn't have to be comedy.
Can I just say? Can you say pick a different 1980s?
Pick
ghost
a different ghost.
Okay,
Okay,
The Shining.
The Shining.
Hang on. I
I'm
got
already hand over dinger.
No. Poltergeist.
Oh shit. Because Poltergeist is influential in my love of movies. Who would have played a better Ghostbuster? So replace one of the three. Give me a name.
Shit.
Name names.
The one I could do without, and this is not a criticism to his role, or to his performance,
Yeah.
but would be Dan Aykroyd. I mean, Bill Murray has to be. Who's the other guy?
Has to be.
We've
Harold
already
Ramis.
talked about
Harold
him.
Ramis.
Like he was
R.I.P.
fucking perfect. I feel like Dan Aykroyd's character, again, not a reflection of the performance, but I feel like his character, you could have someone else do that part, and
Maybe.
it would be okay still.
It's hard for me to imagine anybody because
Yeah.
Aykroyd, we know
Yeah.
in real life,
Right.
I know.
is
Forced you to
super
kill a
into this
baby.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, his
man.
family has a long history of ghost and paranormal investigation, so much so that his great grandfather was a spiritualist
Yeah.
in the American spiritualist movement in whatever
Oh,
that
shit.
was. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
He grew up with
crazy.
like books from his grandfather in his house about ghosts and shit.
So you mean like contemporary actors or any time?
I'll go either.
Oh God.
I'm going to give you a list of people who were considered for roles.
Oh, you want us to actually replace the actor?
Sure,
with a
replace
name.
the actor.
Oh,
I mean, I could get rid. I could
that's
get rid
harder.
of Aykroyd.
I think Sigourney Weaver probably her character could have been played by another strong woman role, but
Molly Ringwald. No, I'm just kidding.
God,
I'm kidding.
no.
I'm kidding. I like Molly Ringwald in anything in the 80s that she was in, but I would not put her in another movie.
I can't think of anybody that would. I'm sorry, but that cast is so perfect in my head that I
It's
can't.
pretty tight.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Yeah.
You know, it really is just a matter of luck because Chevy Chase was considered.
He would
Michael Keaton.
Ooh.
Eddie Murphy. Jim
Wait a second.
Belushi.
Stop for a second.
Eddie Murphy would have been
Michael Keaton is good in everything.
Yeah, Michael Keaton is fucking... Talk about a guy... Like, we talked before about Bill Murray delivery. Michael Keaton is a guy, too. Like, man, his delivery of shit is just... And I've only seen him in so many movies.
Well... Did he do anything outside of the 80s and early 90s?
Yeah. He was...
I lost track of him.
He was fucking brilliant in the 21st century in The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg.
Birdman.
And Birdman. And also, going back to the 90s, but what was that Tarantino film? Jackie Brown. Michael Keaton plays one of the cops in that movie.
He always comes up.
He was considered.
He's great, and I think... If anything, he could have done the Murray role, but it wouldn't have been as good of a movie because Bill Murray is the heart of that movie.
You need Bill Murray's irreplaceable.
I'm not glad Jim Belushi died. I'm glad he didn't play the role.
Right.
But he only didn't play the role because he died.
Which
so
is
like,
kind of,
you know,
it sucks that it worked out that way in history, but it worked out
for the movie.
Let's see.
Oh God, Chevy Chase would have completely dragged that whole thing.
Honestly,
Chevy Chase is fucking awful.
I like him in the movies from National Lampoon.
That's the only he can only play that character. That's it.
Even that, I don't. And this may be another controversial opinion for you '80s lovers. Not a fan of Christmas Vacation, really. That movie, I mean, it's a long series of like, oh look, Chevy Chase hurt himself again.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah, it's not that funny to me. I don't know. I'm not a Chevy Chase fan. I just his humor is all of that like slapstick, fall down, get slapped in the face. Like it's not funny.
Well, he made his name for himself playing Gerald Ford falling off of a ladder, putting a star on a
well,
tree.
that's what I mean. He's a tumbler. You know, that's his thing. That's what they call that in the comedy business.
I associated with that with specifically Christmas Vacation because the lack of decorum and awareness of your surroundings is essentially my biological family. Not my current nuclear family. They're full of grace and tact and Jackie Onassis like style.
Nice.
But my family prior to that would cook a turkey like that and be like, no, you got to eat this shit now. So like that's where I associated with it.
Yeah, I think you have to have a quirky family like that to really get it.
Yeah. What iconic character is not actually named in the movie?
Slimer.
Fuck, you got that fast.
Where's my ding?
Slimer's never named.
You know, it's funny because when you guys were talking about that character before, I was going to ask if that was the green
He's called
ghost.
A repeating vaporous phantasm or
something.
Like
yeah, but then as you were talking, I was able to gather that that's who you meant. So.
By the way, the name Slimer is said in the film, though. When Aykroyd is talking to Winston there about what he's doing, and he's like, you get your basic phantom repeaters, Slimers. And that's where the name stuck from, because he just said randomly, but he didn't mean it to that particular one.
Mm-hmm. Same thing, same question. What other important term is not said until the second film, but they use it all the time?
Not proton pack.
Yeah, it is proton pack. Jesus. I'm sorry, Mike. That was not fair.
Sean hasn't missed one yet.
Yeah, proton pack was not used until the second movie, and then gets famously butchered in the 2016 reboot because they do all those other proton toys. I do like the proton fist though. The fist is kind of cool, and the whips. The whips are cool. Stop it. Stop it. Sean is trying to murder me with his eyes. I didn't think it was that bad.
Terrible.
And there were so many nice homages to the 1984
Only
in
because
the
they had to. Fuck you, 2016 Ghostbusters.
There it is.
There you go. There's the fuck you.
There's Sean's epic fuck you.
I have not done any research to find out why it was so poor. To be fair to them. To be fair.
Again, a great cast that got wasted.
Yeah, unfortunately. That is the end of the lightning round, which was solely Sean based.
Yeah.
I could have answered these after research, Mike. Don't take it to heart.
That's really outed myself as the major dork of this whole group.
And
so
I feel like we've put a fine point on this one.
Yeah,
nice.
I still stand by it, man. You guys did not tell me otherwise, and I hope I convinced you to give the movie maybe a second watch and to think about it not so much in a microcosm of like scene by scene, but as a full, complete picture it is one of the most perfect movies ever made.
Well, I think the best comparison you made was comparing it to Back to the Future 1. Just in terms of like a tight narrative. You know, it's there's not like any scenes there that like could be different. There's no wasted dialogue. You know, beginning to end, it's good storytelling.
Yeah.
High praise. Thanks.
Yeah, I was a stan at the beginning, and I kind of dipped in the middle, but I'm back.
All right. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so you may have noticed that in the previous cast, we were pitching Dune, but we kind of underestimated how big a fucking book Dune is. Holy shit. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I finished it, and I'm glad I did.
Me too.
That's going to be the next cast, I think, so long as we're on schedule. But
Yeah.
we're the bosses here, so we change schedule.
Yeah,
whenever
that's
I was
true.
literally reading Dune on the beach, surrounded by dunes.
Dunes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was reading Dune in Salem, like for hours at a time on vacation to make sure that I got it done because it's great, but big as hell.
Yeah.
So you may have noticed that we didn't do that next. But as of right now, it's still coming up in September.
We'll
That's
give you guys
right.
a head start. Start reading Dune now because we're going to have a lot to say about it. And the Denis Villeneuve movie comes out in October?
It comes out in October.
I'm going to try to find
so-
the shitty movies beforehand and also
Yeah.
watch those.
Yeah.
You know, one of the shitty movies is David Lynch, who is a fucking great director.
Yeah, but Dune is one of those.
Didn't work.
It's hard.
It's like Custer's last. What is that like? The hill that he's whatever. You know, it's like it's like that insurmountable obstacle.
Right.
Like everyone's like, oh, I can do Dune.
Right.
And they do it, and it's like, fuck, that
But
sucks.
until someone does it, because
Yeah.
that's what they said about Lord of the Rings
True.
too.
Yeah.
And
True.
then
You can go to Arrakis, but until you remember that water is everything, that moisture is everything.
I've seen the previews though, and it looks fucking great.
It looks great.
the
I saw it.
previews, there's I think 2 of them out, and they, I mean, I say this as I think Villeneuve is like the greatest director working today. And
Agreed.
that's my opinion. I'm a fanboy of his movies. I love them all.
I agree with you completely.
But having gotten that out of the way, the trailers, they look like classic Denis Villeneuve, and the movie looks like, again, what can you tell from a trailer? I don't know, but it looks really good.
I love anything Zendaya's in.
I was going to say Jason Momoa. I've become a Jason Momoa.
Oh yeah,
stan
Momoa's
lately.
awesome too. Yeah.
That's right.
So, all right, we'll see you in September for that. In the meantime, pick up Ghostbusters 2.
And maybe
Right.
you'll want to listen to somebody, a particular artist that you might enjoy. What would his name be, Mike? I don't know.
Well, unfortunately, artist in question has recently been accused of doing something not so nice in the 1960s.
Yeah,
I never heard
saw
this.
that. He
This
got
just
caught
happened.
in two accusations.
It is, 50 some years on, and it is also, there's some question about whether he was even in the country when this supposedly happened. But yeah, it's a little sensitive at the moment.
Okay, well maybe we can find a new reference for Mike to make then.
We could switch,
Yeah.
find something else. But in the meantime,
on that note.
keep reading, stay awkward, stay nerdy. We will see you in September for Dune, everybody.
Doing up.
Cheers.
Cheers.